Welcome to the Month End CPG Community Chat. The Month End will provide emerging CPG brands real-life knowledge into the accounting, finance, and operational worlds. Our guests will be key stakeholders from those same brands as well as other key contributors to the industry. All right, welcome to episode 27 of the Month End Podcast. Today we have Manny L, co-founder of Heaven's Pantry. How you doing, Manny?
Oh, I'm doing fantastic. Appreciate you all having me on this show.
Well, cool. Well, I'm super excited about this one. We have a former CPA, so as a CPA chatting to another CPA will be hopefully an interesting conversation for the listeners. Additionally, someone who's working a full-time job while launching a CPG brand, so a lot to chat about. So I guess before we get started, Manny, tell us a little bit about yourself. Like, what's your background? Where do you come from? The whole nine yards.
Like you, I was a former CPA. I worked as a consultant for Deloitte and Touche, and that experience has taught me the meaning of hard work. I have never burned the midnight oil as hard as I did as compared to when I was at Deloitte. But I think that was a very good experience. I made a lot of friends. I met a lot of people who really helped push and develop me as a professional. And I also think the opportunity to study and become a CPA really solidified my quantitative chops, and it's really carried over into the professional that I became today. I then moved on to business process transformation. I worked for a large CPG called Mars Incorporated. I started off as a robotic process automation analyst. Put in my time, got promoted. I ended up leading a analytics center of excellence and also being a expert advisor to senior executives at that firm. And I grew my analytics COE using data to help solve the business problems that a lot of managers had in that company. And today I work for a large bank as a VP. I advise senior executives on how to use digital transformation tools to streamline their operations and their business. Throughout my whole career, I've always thought to myself, how can I create win-wins? How can I make sure that I'm winning and I'm getting good experience that can propel me to the next opportunity, and also give me takeaways that I can use to build up my own business. And then secondly, I also made a point to make sure that my employer was also getting their money's worth out of me as well. I'm a firm believer in mutuality. I think that the best kind of deal is a deal where both parties win. And one of the main reasons why I wanted to be on this podcast is because I feel that you can win, I can win, and most importantly, your listeners can win as well and take something away from this.
That's awesome. First things first from that. Yes, anybody that works at a Big Four accounting firm knows the hard work, to say the least. Secondly, just fascinating background. Can you get a little bit more into examples of some automation that you've done and how it, I guess, supported Mars and a different CPG brand at a corporate level?
Sure, absolutely. So our credit process was actually grossly inefficient. And this is the credit process for approving customers for sales. There was a very convoluted process where you would have a bunch of associates, many of them who have been with the company for 5-10 years, the same position. So people with very deep, intimate tribal knowledge and how the company works and how the flow of information works at the company. And one of the biggest drivers of inefficiency at a large organization is what I call non-utilized talent. When you have someone with the capability to do more and their skills, their talents are not being properly utilized. What these people did was that every day in the morning after they got their morning cup of coffee, they would log into an ERP system. They will pull up the creditworthiness of the customer, and then they would basically go onto another screen and then either approve or reject the order after cross-referencing probably at least 3 different Excel files as well. So this is such a joyful process. And when I say joyful, I'm being very, very sarcastic. One thing that we were able to do is that we were able to use a technology called robotic process automation, which mimics what a human does on a computer. So for example, let's say you're going to this system and you're pulling up the data. You can actually configure a virtual worker, and I use that term virtual worker because that's what a bot is. It's ultimately a virtual assistant meant to make your life easier. And this virtual worker that we spun up, it actually grabbed all the data from these multiple sources, and then it plopped it onto a single list. We ended up choosing SharePoint as our list of choice. And then instead of having to go through multiple different systems, we ended up creating an interface that is one single source of truth. It has all the different lists of criteria and metrics necessary to evaluate customer creditworthiness. And then we had a column that says reject, hold, or accept. And then once it's picked up by the robots actually populating the data on that list, and it's also reading the data and the human input as well, so that it can go into the ERP system and make the necessary changes. Once we fully have a decision made on the human end. What's so beautiful about this solution is that you're cutting down multiple systems into one system, so that the end user only has to read the data and use their analytical chops to decide whether this customer is worth extending credit to, and then hitting hold or accept.
That's super cool. Yeah, I mean, it sounds like kind of what every kind of tech SaaS-based platform is trying to do today, right? Create efficiencies in time and energy, and give us, basically organized data and push us information to make decisions. Super cool. So going from this corporate world and this automation, robotics, kind of the way your mind works here, like, give us a little background on Heaven's Pantry. Like, why Heaven's Pantry? Why are you also, while you're working full time?
That necessity is the mother of all invention.
There we go.
Old adage cannot be any more true. When I was working 9 o'clock to 11 o'clock, and that's PM, not AM at Deloitte, one of the perks of the job was that you would get free coffee. And when I woke, I think Deloitte's a great company. I think that they definitely, they definitely have a lot of perks for their employees. They understand that, hey, you're working a lot of hours. Let's make this as comfortable for you as possible. So every day I wake up, I drive to work. I will get a free cup of coffee from Starbucks. During the afternoons, my supervisors will oftentimes send me out on coffee runs, and I never said no, because that is my breath of fresh air for the day. I would have another cup of coffee during the afternoon, and boom, when evening hits, I can't go to sleep anymore. But I needed that jolt to wake myself up and get ready for another day's worth of hard work. And then I looked back on, so obviously this lifestyle of over caffeination was not sustainable. I'm not knocking caffeine. I still drink coffee. I just think that, I just think that it's really important to have a sustainable energy source as well that doesn't lead you to having a crash. I look back to my childhood, and my parents, they used to cut up fruit and nuts before I did my homework for the day. And they explained to me the fruit was meant to give your brain a short boost of energy, and the nuts was actually meant to give you long-lasting energy, and also enhance your cognitive performance as well. And I actually ran a tutoring business when I was in high school as well. I fed my students the same exact, fruits and nuts that my parents fed me when I was younger, and their performance went up. I had a student go up, I think, by 290 points on his SAT. And obviously he was a very diligent worker, but also making sure that he was well nourished. That was also a critical factor for success, in my opinion. So as I as I reflected on my experiences, I realized to myself, why don't I partner up with my friends from college? Why don't I create an energy bar that doesn't lead you to having a crash midway through the day and won't keep you up at night? And thus the Excalibur was born. I think it's it tastes a lot like a brownie in a wrapper, and it also doesn't neglect nutrients as well, because when you have food that isn't good for you but tastes good, you're going to eat it and you're going to feel very lethargic. When you have food that's that's good for you but doesn't taste good, you're not going to want to eat it. So let's have the best of both worlds.
Super cool background of that, and a lot of things that come through in life really are nostalgic at the end of the day, and come from some sort of childhood memory, or which is of the case here. So you decide we're gonna launch Excalibur, your brand, within Heaven's Pantry. Like, what was that process? I guess step one, co-founder. You said your buddies from college. Like, how did you pick your co-founders? Like, how do you get comfortable with them? Like, what are your roles specifically within kind of your partnership here?
So my friend Rob was a very avid cook, and he still is. He was actually baking recipes at his house, and then he really wanted to find a way to not just monetize, because ultimately all three of us, we have good corporate jobs, and we are not in this for the money. Ultimately the money is reinvested to create a better product that can better serve our consumers.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but ultimately, my friend Rob, he wanted to figure out, hey, how can we take our cooking and culinary abilities and spread the love with the whole world? And we used to sell at farmers markets, and those were a wild hit. And that was, I gave him a lot of input for the recipe. He gave me a lot of input. We also had our friend Justin as well. We all went to school together at Lehigh University.
Okay.
Lehigh University is a school in Pennsylvania, very critical towards my personal and professional development. And after we started selling at the farmers market, Excalibur was born. They became wildly popular at the market, and then we ended up scaling up. We rent out a factory in California, and now we're pumping out tons and tons of bars.
Cool. Where are you selling them at outside of farmers markets where you started? Like, online retail? What are you doing?
So we have multiple. We're an omni-channel company. We sell on Amazon, and our Amazon rankings have actually been doing very well. So we are consistently in the top 100 for the fruit and nut bars on Amazon, and on certain days we're actually beating out certain brands of Lara bars. So
congrats.
So watch out, Lara bar. You got competition coming your way. We sell at a acai bowl chain in North Carolina called Palm Berries. Shout out to Palm Berries. They're if you're ever in the area, I really recommend you stop by. Great food and friendly people. We have a few stores out in California that we sell to, and we also have a few in Pennsylvania as well. And this is where having geographically distributed leadership is actually to our benefit.
There you go. Much easier distribution. In terms of inventory, I guess number one, you have one SKU or one bar you're doing here. You said you had a factory out in California. Are you guys leveraging co-packers, like, or just your partner kind of cooking? What's the manufacturing or creation of the brand?
We're leveraging a co-packer. That's a great question. We're leveraging a co-packer, but ultimately, I think there's a right and a wrong way to use a co-packer. I think the wrong way to use a co-packer is to have them develop the recipe for you from scratch and just accept whatever word and advice that they give as gospel. I think it's always important to listen to their expertise in the realm of manufacturing, but ultimately you are responsible for the success or failure of your product. So our strategy was, we come up with a recipe ourselves, a recipe that we feel proud of. And then instead of having them develop the recipe, we give them that recipe and we tell them, this is what we want the bar to taste like. How can you replicate this in a scalable, economic way without compromising customer quality?
That makes a lot of sense. You want to have that ownership, in your product and your brand, and then clearly leveraging other people's knowledge or expertise as needed. So, I guess from that, then, are they sourcing raw materials as well, or is it kind of a mixed model?
So they are sourcing raw materials, but we are very, very, we're a very active participant in this process. I think that when you fully wash your hands of the sourcing process, the recipe creation process, that's when your brand starts losing its identity. So we trust them. We tell them, hey, we want this. We want high quality nuts. We want high quality cocoa powder. Come back to us with a list of options, and tell us the pros and cons of each, and we'll partner together to make that final decision.
Gotcha. Super cool. So then in relation to, selling, like, and let's go to Amazon, where you're saying you're getting like really great ratings and rating well. How do you determine success? Or what metrics are you looking at specifically, let's say on the Amazon sales channel?
Number one, I think the product ranking is really important. Breaking top 100 was a huge boost of confidence to our team. And that's when we realized that our business had wheels to stand on. And it wasn't always in the top 100. We were actually hovering at around the 200s and 300s when we first started out. And then over time, this product just became more and more and more popular. And and then for customer reviews, I think that having a good product, there's really no way around it. As a entrepreneur, I'm not in the business. I don't like to think of myself as in the business of collecting and taking people's money. I like to think of myself as a guy who provides a valuable good or service to the world. And whatever money that people pay me, that's so I can continue to provide a valuable good or service to the world, and also keep making a better good or service. So we really take into heart what our customers are saying. We have a 4.9 star average on our Amazon product. And I think that a good baseline is aiming for at least a 90% customer satisfaction rate. Ultimately, not everyone's going to like your product. Not everyone's going to be in love with it. Like what do you like to eat, Brad?
I like meat, bacon.
Cool. So do I. I'm a huge bacon fan. Okay, but you go to that local farmer's market, you get a nice slab of steak or bacon, and you'll jump for joy, be really excited. But what if a vegan comes across that slab of meat? He might not be so excited at the concept of eating that slice of bacon or slab of steak. So ultimately, you have to remember, you can't please everyone, but you still want to have more people who like your product and dislike it.
Yes, I 100% agree. You cannot have a wholesale agreement on anything in life. So there's the push and pull of what really is a kind of good review or a good feedback to take. Not everything is good feedback because they come from a different perspective. From an Excalibur standpoint or Heaven's Pantry, you have this one SKU. Is there anything in the hopper moving forward of different SKUs or different flavors or kind of different sales channels?
We actually have something in the pipeline for a new product. That's going to be announced probably the end of this year or early next year. But in terms of different channels, we believe in building strong relationships with the local community. I think that a lot of small brands, they dream really big and they think, hey, let's take over the world. But I think that before you make a difference on the world, you have to be able to make a dent in your local community. So our sales process for getting into stores, a lot of it is just going out, making friends, shaking hands, and then telling people, hey, this is our product. Let me know if you think a win-win can be created. If not, we can still be friends. I'll still like your stuff on Instagram. I'll still spread the good word about your store. But if you think that we can make, if you think that we can boost both of our brands, why don't you try selling some of our product at your store? So it's really just local. A lot of it's really just local outreach. We are also on a few platforms that are specifically for wholesale buyers. We're a big fan of Mabel. It's a marketplace for people who own stores and are looking to stock their stores with unique wholesale goods, oftentimes from local businesses like mine.
Mm-hmm. Definitely, Mabel, Pod Foods Fair, a ton of different platforms for the CPG folks outside of clearly Amazon and the website.
I love how you ratted out the main brands. You definitely, I can tell you've been doing this for a long time.
Yep. We keep seeing the growth on all those across a lot of our clientele. So kind of to loop back around here in a couple things. Number one, you're a former CPA and accountant. Like, what do you do? Who does the accounting for Excalibur? Do you do it?
So we have a CPA that we partner with. And I think that my background in accounting, they have the saying that the more you know about something, the more you realize that you don't know. A lot of people think CPA equals good at preparing taxes, when in reality, a CPA's career can take multiple different directions. They can get into tax compliance. And tax compliance itself has so many different branches that you can go down on as well. You have the standard business tax preparation, and you also have niche specialists who focus on specific credits and can build lucrative practices off of that alone. You have your auditors who make sure that the financial statements and the books look clean and in good order. And you also have operational accountants as well who provide the information to the senior leadership of the company so they can be equipped to make decisions. As to how my relationship is with the accountant that I use, I outsource most of my compliance. I outsource my tax preparation, and where my accounting background comes into play, it's really monitoring those KPIs and building systems that can alert me whenever there's a decision that I need to make. For example, when do I need to restock my inventory? When do I need to set aside reserves to pay off my tax liabilities? Those are the areas, the more high-level strategic activities. That's where my accounting background comes into handy, and it actually enables me to be a better customer to my CPA.
Awesome. And then last kind of question before we get into our kind of two final questions on this podcast. Number one is, how have you leveraged automation or your background in that world to support Heaven's Pantry?
Bill Gates once said, the best kind of person to hire is a lazy person, because the lazy person will find the most efficient way to do something. Due to my background and due to the way that I was raised, I was always taught, work hard, burn the midnight oil. And I pretty much, since I started working, I think I've been averaging probably 70, 80 hours a week. Even as I exited the world of the Big Four, I never really scaled down my hours. But ultimately, I had to teach myself how to be a little bit lazy. Instead of just doing the work, how can I figure out a way to do less work? And that's where automation started coming into handy. I used to manually populate CRMs by hand, by going out online and then looking for stores that might be promising leads, and then entering them into our CRM. And I realized my time is a little bit more valuable than doing data entry. And I think anyone's time is a little bit more valuable than doing mindless data entry. And that's where I realized the same tools that I was designing, architecting, and building during my time at Mars Incorporated, I can actually build some of those tools for myself. And one of my biggest wins was actually creating a robot using a tool called UiPath, which is a robotic process automation software. And this software actually can go onto, I configured it to go on multiple websites and then populate an Excel spreadsheet with a lot of leads, complete with the name of the store, contact information, email, phone number, and then their general industry. So I can prepare, myself to add value to them. So for example, if it's a gym, I can tell them about how my bar keeps people energetic and can also be a great purchase for people who are, attendees of a fitness class, leaving their spirits boosted up. If it's a health food store, I can tell them about how, hey, we're a small business. This bar is going to make you guys look really cool. And the same kind of people who frequent your store are probably going to fall in love with our bar. So using robotic process automation, I was able to automate a huge part of our lead generation process. And that alone is stopping me from having to pull my hair out.
Amen on that. Time is money. Time is, one of the limiting resources that exists in the world. Time, right? Time, money, talent. So as much as you can kind of, automate anything that is kind of very low ROI on the time spectrum, it makes a lot of sense. So super cool on that. So, all right. Well, this has been a very interesting conversation. I think, Manny here is definitely the best voice on any of our guests on the podcast. One of the most interesting backgrounds, but a fellow CPG founder. So he's got some do's and don'ts here for us to kind of chat on. So number one, what is one CPG industry do for the listeners?
Definitely. So if I had to have just one do, it would be really simple. Never forget why you're in business. You are not in business. You are not in business to extract as much value as possible from your customers. And I see within the CPG growth life cycles, a lot of times as companies get larger and larger and larger, they start to lose touch with their mission. They start to lose touch of why they're in business. And a business will not survive unless every day when they wake up, when the leadership wakes up and in the morning and ask themselves, what can I do to provide a better experience, whether it's the product or the customer journey? How can I provide a better experience to my customers? And you have to obsess over the customers. So before we talk about anything else, I want to put that out there. But now that we put that out there, the second thing I wanted to talk about is systems. You want to have systems in place. In our society, we think that success is bred off of sudden aha moments, and it is not. And I'll give you an example. Let's say playing the guitar. You see someone walk up on stage and bust out a really sick solo, or you see him sing flawlessly in rhythm to a song, and it looks effortless, but it is not. The performer on that stage is able to achieve those results, not because he had an aha moment on how to play, but because every day when he got up, he had a system and he had a process in place, drilling down those scales, transitioning your finger movements from the fretboard, from the different strings to become more synergized, become more flawless and in tune. Those are all steps that you don't see him talk about, you don't see him doing, but the song that you see a guitarist play on the stage was built by a system. Now, for something way more complex than just playing a few pieces of music, like running a business, that's like conducting an entire orchestra. If even a solo musician needs systems to to get their business in order, then a orchestra needs to have even more systems and be even more systems minded. Thirdly, my third and final do is, even though you want to be lazy, and that you want to identify and be very ruthless with identifying non-value added activities, you cannot be afraid of hard work. And it sounds like a contradiction, but it's not. A lot of people start businesses because they don't like working a corporate job. In fact, I actually think working a corporate job is one of the best ways to learn and build the human capital necessary to propel your business to the next level. There is no shame in working in a 9 to 5 or a 9 to 8. You should not shy away from hard work, but at the same time, you want to work hard in a smart way. So those are my three dudes. In terms of don'ts, right? Don't be pessimistic and focus on the short term. You always underestimate what you can accomplish in the long term, but people, as a rule of thumb, always overestimate what can be done today or this week. So you want to focus on quarters, and you want to focus on years as well. Is what I'm doing in the short term pushing the needle in the long term? Because success is built over a series of long-term improvements. And number two, you shouldn't compare yourself to other people. You should compare yourself to certain benchmarks, obviously, but you got to be very cognizant of who you compare yourself to. So let's say in the CPG industry, right? You shouldn't compare yourself to, I don't know, maybe a tech startup, which might have bigger margins, more explosive growth. You should be very cognizant of who you compare yourself to. And then lastly, my last don't is, don't have an ego. Leave your ego at the door. The second you have an ego, the second that you build up this sense of arrogance and conceit that, hey, I'm the best, nothing can go wrong, that's when the hard slap of reality will hit you across the face. You always want to listen to the perspectives of other people, because that's how iron sharpens iron.
I love it. Lots of wisdom there. Great do's and great don'ts, and I can agree and relate with a lot of those. So kudos for sharing all those items, Manny. But hey, we're gonna sign off here. This has been fantastic. I really appreciate your time. Really appreciate learning about you and your background and everything, and clearly talking about Heaven's Pantry and how your philosophy at running a business as well as a CPG brand. Before we leave, where can people find Heaven's Pantry? Where can they follow you? Give us a little background on that, and then we'll call it a day.
Awesome. So first and foremost, I love talking to my customers, whether existing or new or potential customers as well. Shoot us a follow on Instagram. Our Instagram handle is Heaven's Pantry. Follow us, give us a DM, and I'll literally DM you a special discount code that can be used on Amazon. If you go on Amazon and look up Excalibur, that's Excalibur except with an A instead of a U, so Excalibur. And then you also type in Heaven's Pantry, you'll see our product pop up. It's a beautiful design with a castle. You can't miss it. You can buy from us on Amazon, and our website. If you're looking for wholesale orders, go to heavenspantryllc.com and click the shop button, and you can get in touch with us on how to buy wholesale. Once again, I really appreciate the privilege of being on your podcast and being able to connect with your customers, and I'm sure our paths will cross again.
Awesome. All right, Manny L from Heaven's Pantry, episode 27 from the Month End Podcast. Hope you all enjoyed it. Thanks again, Manny.
Thank you.